Hi everyone, my name is Richard Young, the creator of this cartoon. I'm not trying to adhere to any particular political ideology, though I must admit I am probably a little bit right of center in my thinking. With artificial intelligence providing the artistic talent, something I lack, I've been able to put my thoughts and ideas into these political cartoons. Today's cartoon shows President Trump in a USA wrestling outfit straining to lift a barbell labeled NATO. Watching from the sidelines while America does the heavy lifting are European and Canadian leaders sitting in business suits watching the American president strain. The point of this cartoon is that the United States has been carrying a disproportionate share of the burden of the NATO alliance for decades, while the other member nations have been free riders on American military spending and military presence. Let me give you the actual numbers because the disparity is striking. NATO members have committed to spending at least 2% of their gross domestic product on defense. This was the target set in 2006 and reaffirmed in 2014 after Russia's annexation of Crimea. For most of the last 2 decades, the United States has been one of only a small handful of nations actually meeting that commitment. Over the last 40 years, the United States has accounted for roughly 66% of all defense spending of NATO countries. In the last 3 years, that has gone down to 61.7%. The other NATO countries are increasing their spending, but very slowly. Germany, which has the largest economy in Europe, spent below 2% for nearly all of that period and only crossed the threshold recently under pressure from both the Trump administration and the war in Ukraine. Canada, which the cartoon depicts as one of the sidelined observers, has spent about 1.33% of GDP on defense, well below the agreed target for many years. Canada has only recently committed to reaching the 2% threshold by 2032, 18 years after the commitment was made. This isn't really a partisan issue in American politics. Presidents Obama, Trump, and Biden have all expressed frustration with European underspending. The complaint has been consistent across administrations and parties. What's changed under the current Trump administration is the willingness to make the complaint loudly and the willingness to suggest that American security guarantees might not be unconditional if Europe doesn't pay its share. Now, the European response to this critique deserves a fair hearing. European nations have argued that they contribute in ways that don't show up in defense spending percentages, such as humanitarian assistance, peacekeeping contributions, hosting American forces, and so on. They've also pointed out that they've increased spending substantially since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Both points have some merit, but the fundamental imbalance the cartoon depicts is real. For decades, the security architecture that has kept Europe safe, particularly safe from Russia, has been underwritten primarily by the American taxpayer. European countries built up generous welfare states partly because they didn't have to fund their own defense at the level their geographic situation arguably required. America paid for the umbrella while Europe paid for the social programs. The cartoon's argument is that this can't continue indefinitely. Either the burden gets rebalanced or the alliance will eventually fracture under the weight of this imbalance. My own view is that the Trump administration's pressure on this issue, while sometimes delivered with rhetoric I wouldn't have chosen, has accomplished something real. European defense spending has risen meaningfully under the threat that American protection might not be guaranteed. The 2% target is being approached and in some cases exceeded by countries that ignored it for 2 decades. That's a genuine accomplishment, even if the means of achieving it have been uncomfortable for traditional allies. The harder question is what comes next. Is the goal a NATO where Europeans pay their fair share, but the alliance otherwise functions as before? Or is the goal a meaningful restructuring of who provides what, with American capabilities focused on the Pacific and European capabilities focused on European defense? Different answers lead to different policies. What do you think? Has the United States been carrying too much of NATO's weight for too long? Should American pressure on European allies continue, or has it gone far enough? Let me know in the comments. If you found this interesting, I would appreciate you subscribing to this channel, liking the video, and even sharing it with friends. Thanks for listening.